Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video we will be doing something very, well, kinda exciting because we will be going over how you can prepare for the CFA Level I exam with just 2 months of studying. The reason why I'm making this video is that I know I'm not alone. The CFA exams are intimidating, especially when you're first starting out. And personally, I took my CFA Level I exam in May 2021, and that was also the first time I took the exam. This was also the exam where the pass rates fell through the floor and hit like an all-time low of 25% for the first time. So my May exam was at the end of May, and I didn't start studying until early April, and so I spent around 8 weeks or a little bit less than 2 months to study for it. And that wasn't my plan at all going into it. I was planning on spending 4 or 5 months studying for the exam because that's what Google tells you. But you know, time flew by and I was busy with work and other things, and so suddenly it was like April and I was like, oh shoot, I should really start studying for my May exam. So I did start studying, and it was a very stressful period, like not gonna lie, it wasn't fun at all. But I did come out with a great result. You know, I passed, I scored in the 19th percentile, and I am sure that you can do that too, even if you only have 2 months or less to study for the exam. So I wanted to share all of these tips for passing CFA Level I, and hopefully you will find them helpful. Hi guys, I just wanted to make it very clear that I do not recommend that you only spend 2 months to study for the CFA exam. Like, I definitely think that it's more ideal to spend, 4 or 5 months to prepare for the exam, but if your exam is already only 2 months away, don't fear, there's still hope and you can still make it. That's like my message basically. Okay, let's get back to it. So personally, the only place that I used to study for the CFA exam was the learning ecosystem that is provided to you for free when you sign up for a CFA exam. And I used that even though my employer would have actually covered the expenses of me using an external vendor if I had chosen to do that, but I didn't because I really liked the learning ecosystem and I felt like it covered all my needs. And like, there are a lot of readings on there, that is totally true, but I liked it because, it is provided to you by the CFA Institute, and so you know that it literally covers every single thing that you might need to know for exam day. Also, there are so many practice questions on there. Like, I did a lot and I think I still had some left over. And I really like the practice questions because 1, they're real CFA questions, and 2, it's really helpful to sort of see how they phrase the questions, because there are some pretty sort of tricky phrasings in there. Like, there's a lot of most likely and least likely and double negatives and that kind of thing, and sort of just getting used to the phrasing of the questions I think will help you on exam day so that you don't get confused by the question but just by, I guess, the stuff that you have to know. Personally, at least, I found that super helpful. Another thing that I really like about the learning ecosystem is that it tells you how many study points you need to get every day to be done by your deadline. And I personally set my deadline to a week before my exam, and that way I would have 1 week left to review all the material before exam day. And I definitely recommend that you take at least 1 week to review the material. If you can, take 2 weeks. I definitely think that like the review period was the most important period for me. I learned so much there, and without it, I'm not sure I would have even passed. Like, the review period is crucial because it just refreshes all the knowledge that you already have. And after you've set up your study schedule, your deadline and all of that, you really just start studying. And I would recommend that you study every day, even on weekdays. Also, if you are busy with work, just try to get a little bit of studying in, and then maybe catch up a little bit extra on the weekends when you might have more time. Figure out what works for you. Personally, I studied every day because it just helped me get that habit in of like getting used to studying so much for those 2 months. And while you study, try to keep track of all the different formulas that you need to know for the exam day and write them down on, like a formula sheet or cheat sheet or something, so that once your review period starts, you have that formula sheet to go back to and quickly refresh all the formulas. Because you probably will forget some, at least I forgot a lot of them, but once I then saw them on my formula sheet, I could remember them again during my review. Other than that, I don't think you need to take any notes because it would just slow you down when you study. Obviously, if you do have more time, feel free to do that, but if we're working with 2 months, I would recommend that you don't take more notes than that because it will slow you down. And while you study, you can consider using, the Pomodoro method or some other kind of study technique, like setting a timer for 25 minutes, then studying for those 25 minutes, then taking a 5-minute break, then studying for 25 minutes again, and so on, or whatever works for you, just to make it a little bit more bearable to study so much every day for so long. When it comes to how much you need to study, CFA's website estimates that it takes approximately 300 hours of studying to pass CFA Level I. I think a lot of people can get away with quite a bit less, but it really all depends on your own personal situation and background. You know, someone who majored in finance or econ in school and has many years of CFA relevant work experience is going to have a much easier time studying and passing the CFA exams than someone who didn't do those things. So I recommend sitting down, thinking about your own background and situation, and sort of based on that estimate how much time you might need to carve out of your schedule to prepare for the exam. Because, you know, everyone's going to have to spend a different number of hours preparing for the exam. Personally, I have a bachelor's in international business and a master's in entrepreneurship, and when I took the CFA Level I exam, I had less than 1 year of full-time work experience, and that was within alternative investments, and so it was CFA relevant, but I really didn't come into it with a lot of experience. In addition, it can be a good idea to sort of consider what topics on the CFA Level I exam that you will have an easier time studying for and what topics will be more difficult for you, just because that way you can better mentally prepare for what topics to spend more time on and what topics to spend less time on. And I personally had the easiest time with the topics alternatives, equities, corporate finance, and ethics, I would say. And I definitely struggled the most with financial statement analysis. Also, as you study every day, make sure to do all the practice problems, like those are the most important part of studying in my opinion. If you are under a lot of time pressure, I recommend skipping all the different readings and then only reading the summary page of every chapter, and then instead doing all the practice problems. Like, don't skip out on the practice problems, that's like my biggest piece of advice, because I just found those to be the most effective way to learn, especially because that is literally what the exam is going to consist of. And with the whole skipping the readings and only doing the questions, I actually did that for my 2 final topics. I think that was portfolio management and alternatives, and that worked fine for me still. And then when you're finally done with studying and your review period begins, I recommend obviously reviewing your notes if you took any, and then also reading all the summary pages, because that's just a really good way to refresh the material. And then, you guessed it, do more practice problems. And if you have no practice questions left, fear not, because you can just go to like the questions tab or something and then reset all your answers to all the, you know, practice questions that you have done, and then just do them again. And I did that, I think, for level 2 at least. And personally, I discovered that like I had totally forgotten about the question, so I couldn't remember the answer even though I had done the question like a month ago or something, so it still worked great for me. Another big tip is when you are reviewing, spend extra time reviewing ethics, especially if it was one of the first topics that you studied for. I'm not sure if CFA has said anything official about this, but all the different people with CFAs that I talked to when I was trying to prepare for the exam told me to spend extra time on ethics, because if you do get a good score in ethics, it can help you pass even if your entire exam score was under the minimum passing score, because that's how important the ethics score is to the CFA Institute. And so I don't know if that is true or not, but I would say definitely do spend extra time on your ethics studies. Also because it is a big section in the level 1 exam. During your review period, you also want to make sure to do at least 1 full-length practice exam, and the learning ecosystem actually provides you with that. And I would recommend to take that, 2 to 3 days before your real exam, because that way you have enough time to really review your results and understand the questions that you got wrong and sort of improve your weaknesses there. And when you do take the practice exam, I recommend trying to sort of mimic real exam conditions, and so being a quiet area where you won't be disturbed, put your phone away, only use the calculator that is allowed for the exam, and like use scratch paper but don't use any of the notes and that kind of thing. And then after you've taken your exam, really take time to review your results and look at your strengths and weaknesses and try to figure out where you can improve in the last 3 days that you have left before the exam. Also, if your practice exam score is 70% or above, I would say that is a really good sign that you will pass on exam day. Personally, I took 1 practice exam and I scored 78% on that, and that worked out fine for me. Finally, on exam day, make sure that you have slept enough the days leading up to it, and that you have eaten enough on exam day before the exam, and like all those different things that you would usually do for like any kind of important test. And also, when you're done with your exam, go treat yourself, because I am sure it will have been a couple difficult months and stressful months for you too, like it was for me at least. And so even though you don't have your results yet, I think you deserve a break, and so go be nice to yourself. So that is all my top tips for you guys on how to pass CFA Level 1 with just 2 months of studying. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Also, if you are studying for CFA Level 1 or are considering doing it or already have done it, I would love to hear about your experience in the comments. I always responded to all my comments. And also, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And other than that, I will see you next week. Bye!